control on the road rage effect, and how to overcome your fear of driving. Right? So I need some interaction though, because we need this session to be interactive. We need some vibes, beer vibes, and not just presentation, you know, we need the vibes and stuff. So I need, firstly, if you're a driver now, I want you to send me, well, I don't know, can you send emojis on this? Yeah, say a thumbs up emoji. But if you are currently a driver, if you can send me a thumbs up emoji or yes, if you are a driver now, and if you're a soon to be driver, just type soon to be in the chat. So I'll view those as they come down. I just want to know who it is I'm working with so I know how best to how best to deliver the message. All right, so I see Spence saying soon to be, Daniel soon to be. All right, nice, nice. All right, guys, so just keep the comments coming. So self-control on the road. So just to tell you a little bit about myself while those responses come in. So I've been driving for 5 years now. So this year I actually changed my license for the first time. So, you know, after 5 years, you change your license on your birthday. So on your birthday, you can't go anywhere. So, you know, please to renew your licenses before your birthday, just to avoid that kind of drama. But yes, I've been driving for 5 years, and I've driven buses, vans, buggies, everything. I've driven almost everything except trucks. Like I haven't got there yet, but I can get there, and just because I don't have access to a truck, where I haven't driven a truck as yet, right? So driving in Jamaica, we know, is no easy task. Like, it's a serious like battleground on Jamaican streets. It's no easy task, and I can speak specifically for Kingston and St. Andrew to say that our roads can be among the craziest roads. We have some of the craziest drivers, the craziest taxi drivers, too much things, right? So, you know, it's a battleground. So the fear is nothing to be concerned about or whatever, because it comes about naturally. It's something that exists. Now, the advice I got from a friend when I started driving is you're on the road to drive for yourself and for everybody else. So it's not really just you driving for yourself in your vehicle. You have to drive for yourself and drive for everybody else around you, because you need to stay focused. You need to watch the road. You need to use your mirrors. And this term wasn't around at the time 5 years ago when I got the advice, but basically shadow your brake, shadow the brake, because at any moment you're gonna need to do that quick action, and your brake is your best friend in those scenarios. So being alert, of course, is one of the most important things to me when it comes to driving. So being alert, not being on your phone, not being too distracted by the music. Nothing is wrong with a little music, but be sure that you can hear what's around you. So don't use earphones when you're driving, that type of thing. But another important thing, of course, we know is self-control, and that's really the main reason why I'm here to talk about self-control. And of course, to talk about the road rage effect and overcoming your fear of driving. So I'll start off with overcoming the fear of driving, because I think this is one of the biggest things. A lot of people just afraid to drive. They just don't want to drive. They don't want to go around the steering wheel. They prefer to be driven, and even if they're driven, they prefer to ride in the back. So they don't really need to see all the drama that's going on up front, right? So many new drivers suffer from what you call new driver anxiety, or just driver anxiety, because even existing drivers have that kind of anxiety. And it can come during the driving lessons. I don't know if you guys are in lessons now. I see a lot of soon to be as responsive. Are you guys doing lessons now? You can just tell me yes or no. But it can come on during driving lessons, especially when it's your first time out of the park and on the road. And it can come when you finally got your license and you start driving on your own, and you realize now, you know, it doesn't make sense to go driving in the first place, because everything you're doing just going wrong. You miss the sign, them people are blow behind you, all kind of something, everything just look confusing. You can't remember what that street sign mean, a whole heap of things, right? So all of that is just tied to that driver anxiety that we get. And it's inevitable for the most part, especially when you're just starting out. So, all right, guys. So a lot going on in the background. Guys, remember to mute your mic, please. Interesting conversations going on. All right, so story time. So as I tell you, I got over my driver anxiety early, because within the first 2 days of driving school, because I always hated when you're driving on the road with people, and you always hear the men say, "I must want a woman that I drive," right? You know, like it couldn't be a man driving and make a mistake, and it couldn't just be anybody driving and make a mistake. That would be, oh, I must want a woman that drive, a woman can't drive, a woman no give blind and blah blah blah. So I'm like, you know, I'm not gonna fall into that category. I'm gonna be somebody who can drive, somebody who's confident on the road, somebody who just gonna hold their own, whatever. Nobody can bully me on the road, all of that. And I didn't want to fall under that, like I said, the coward category of women who can't drive, blah blah blah, the stereotype, right? We don't want that. So let's just put that stereotype aside. I say we have a mixture of men and women in here. Men do not go on the road to say it's the women who would cause the problem, because I know we have more taxi men, just saying, and the taxi men wreak havoc, just saying. Right? So I mean, it was something for me that was just my personal reason as to why I wanted to get over the anxiety, because I really hated hearing that statement, and I was just going to be a good driver, full stop. So a lot of things though can actually trigger this new driver anxiety, right? And an entity called Motoring Research did a study on some of the biggest fears on driving, right? So a lot of the fears now, we know some of them are related to probably experiences and all of that, but these are the results from that study. So the first one would have been motorway or highway driving. 31% of persons were afraid of that. Number two would be crashing. 28% were afraid of that. Driving in bad weather was number three, with 26% of persons being afraid. Parallel parking was another big one, 26% again afraid. Stalling, I mean, this wouldn't necessarily apply now. I know more people are driving automatic than standard, but I learned to drive standard, and I was afraid of stalling when we were doing the traffic practice, because you know, when you stall now, it's just embarrassing, and then the windows never tint, so everybody goes to say you can't manage the car and whatever. So I honestly, I've only stalled once during my entire driving lessons and everything, so that's good. I'm proud of myself. Right. Some people are actually afraid of reversing and reverse parking. That's it. That's when you park face out. I actually park better face out and driving in. That's another weird thing, but yes. So reverse parking, 20% are afraid of that. Night driving, 19% are afraid of that. New or unknown roads are getting lost. 14% are afraid of that. Driving alone, 14% were afraid of that. And car maintenance, 13% were afraid of that. And car maintenance meaning, you know, if suppose you get a punctured tire on the road and you need to stop and change it, all those stuff, right? So can anybody relate to any of these fears that I just listed? As I said, communicate with me in the chat. So if you can think of, if you can relate to any of these fears that I just listed, whether it is crashing, highway driving, driving in bad weather, parallel parking, stalling, reverse parking, night driving, driving by yourself, getting lost, car maintenance, right? Jamina says all of the above. Right. So a lot of times though, our fears have nothing to do with those things, right? It has nothing to do with the crashing or the new roads or anything like that, right? A lot of times it has to do with probably a bad experience. So probably you witnessed an accident. Probably all the videos, I remember last year, a lot of videos were circulating with taxis just doing the most, driving on sidewalk, looking down people, everything like those kind of traumatic experiences could have you fearing driving, getting lost. You could have a fear of just getting lost, full stop. Even if you're walking or driving, going anywhere, you're getting lost. Driving through bad weather, so rain or any thunderstorm or even fog. Those things can cause fear of losing control, and the over imagination of the, oh my God, what if this or what if that, right? When you constantly replay different scenarios in your head of what could possibly go wrong in any given situation. And what you can realize with all of these is that they're all in our head, right? So yes, a past experience could be traumatic. You could have been in a vehicle when an accident happened to that vehicle. You could have been, you know, driving and seeing it happen, or you could have heard somebody telling you about an accident, and then you're like, oh my God, you know, I don't want to drive because I don't want that to happen to me, blah, 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 right? So some of the symptoms now when it comes to the fear of driving: confusion when you're on the road, dizziness, heart palpitation, sweaty palms, or even just sweating overall, disorientation, so you start to lose your sense of direction, you don't know what you're doing, everything just going wrong, shortness of breath, or dry mouth. So these are just some of the symptoms of the fear of driving. So my tips now on how you can overcome the fear, because like I said, it's natural to be fearful of driving, especially when you're doing it for the first time, especially when you're alone. So the first thing I would say is to be informed, because a lot of times the anxiety is triggered by uncertainty or lack of knowledge of what to do, etc. So for persons who are in driving school now, read the books. So the people might say, oh, you can pass the test without reading the book, whatever. But what if a situation comes up where you never read the book, something never come on the test, and then you go on the road and you see it for the first time and you don't know what to do. You don't know if you must turn left, turn right, turn back, whatever, right? You need to read the books, guys. And the books are very short and easy to get through. I mean, the mechanics book might be a little more complicated, but read the books, especially the road code book. Read the book, memorize the book, study the book, be informed of what to do in those scenarios. And then you can go on to watch videos. I like to watch videos on defensive driving, so you know how to swing out and how to brake and, you know, what's the appropriate time, whether to use a foot brake or the hand brake, those type of things. So be informed, just find ways to inform yourself of, if you're one of the persons who think of the what if situations, find ways to avoid those what if situations. Secondly, drive with somebody experienced if you can and while you can. So if you are going on the road, if you prefer to drive with a friend, even if they're not necessarily experienced, just to have the company, that's good. But it's always good to drive with somebody experienced as well, especially within your first few months of driving, of just getting your license and driving, or even as a learner. And I would say that you should use up your learner's permit, because a lot of people get the learner's permit, they do the 2 weeks driving lessons and they don't drive again. They probably make the learners expire and have to get it again to do another driving test. Don't do that, guys. You paid for it. Some of you have to sit a test for it now. Use it up. Try to get a friend, you know, to ask your friend to carry you to an open lot, make you drive around. Go to a football field and drive around. Use it up, because the more practice and the more comfortable you get with driving, the better. Stick to daytime driving if possible, because nighttime driving, especially, you know, if you wear glasses like me and all of that, it's a lot more complicated than you think. The day people tend to, especially with the curfew now, a lot of people tend to be rushing home between the 6 and 8 o'clock time frame. So the earlier you can leave your place to get to where you're going, the better, because you really want to avoid that rush. You want to avoid the, you know, low visibility. You want to avoid all those things, especially if you're fearful, because you don't want it to be a situation where you need to act quickly and you freeze up out of panic and you let go the steering wheel and you and the car flip over and all of that, right? You have to be comfortable. You have to be, you know, get comfortable. So use up your drive, all those things, guys, and stick to daytime driving just to ensure that, you know, you have more control in the daytime. Another thing, be confident in your skills and your driving ability. You paid money for your driving lessons. You did the driving lessons. You did your driving test, for those of you who have done it, or if you're going to do it. Don't make it look like it never make any sense, right? Do not waste or do not doubt yourself, because when it comes to decision making, you have to be confident in the decision, because when it comes to driving, you make a lot of split-second decisions. So especially, given a scenario now, when you're turning onto a road, so this is a major road, and this is you on a class B or a class C road, and you're trying to get on that major road. You have oncoming traffic on both ends. You have a few seconds basically to decide if you're going to drive out to try and beat the traffic, or if you're just going to wait until tomorrow when all the cars pass and gone. I know some roadways do not allow that. Before Mandela was built up, it used to be like that. You had to actually drive across 3 lanes of traffic to get to the other side. So in that moment, you have to be confident. You have to say, yes, I can make it. And then you drive convincingly that you can make it across the road or onto the turnoff or whatever. Same thing at a 4-way when it comes to the stop sign. You know, when you read the book, you will know that, you know, the person to your right gets the right away if you guys arrive at the same time. And that is how it goes, you know, in clockwise, anti-clockwise rotation and all of that. So confidence is key. You have to be confident in your ability, confident in your skills. And number 5, do not overthink, right? So the what ifs, they're just some things that you can't control, right? Regardless, you can't control. If it's to happen, it's to happen. But if you sit down and create the scenario in your head, it's more likely to happen that way. So it's more likely for you to see a dog crossing the street, and then in the moment the dog is crossing, before you press on the brake, you say, Jesus and peace, supposed to lick a dog. Lord God, me lick a dog. You don't like, you could have pressed the brake long time and saved the poor dog. You know, don't overthink. Just act accordingly. You know what to do. You know that your brake is your best friend. You know that you need to be alert. So those things, like, don't overthink, guys. Just relax, take it easy, and exercise whatever it is that you were taught in the driving school. Now we're at self-control and the road rage. And like I said, guys, this is very important, because listen, a lot of things happen in these streets. People, you need to be ready to, like, protect yourself and control your reaction, because some people are so thin-skinned, like you might even just, all right, so you might stop beside somebody. This is something I've seen where 2 people are cussing, or like a driver and one a drive bad and the next one a bad driving back and whatever, and they get to a stoplight. And everybody is cool, you know, until one driver decides that he's going to wind down his window and tell the other driver about him parts and whatever. And the 2 of them come out of the vehicle now, block up all of the traffic and cuss him in the road. Like, that wasn't necessary from morning, right? So you really have to know that self-control is something very important, and road rage is something very real, something we need to avoid as well. So self-control is the ability to control oneself, particularly your emotions and reactions to situation under particularly high stress environments. Again, self-control is the ability to control oneself, particularly your emotions or your reactions to situations under particularly high stress environments. So remember now, or for most people who don't know, that stress can be positive and negative. So stress isn't always bad. So stress just refers to any change that your body has to adapt to, right? That is what stress by definition is. So you might be excited or you might be overwhelmed. And it, as I said, it's any situation your body has to adjust to. So don't think all stress meaning stress out, right? So stress out is different. Like stress is natural. Stress is, you know, your body reacts to stress naturally, flight or flight. For people who did bio and understand adrenaline and all of that's a whole other topic, right? But when you have self-control, you're able to remain calm and you're able to prevent any impulsive or undesirable reaction by not acting on those feelings. So you might be angry, you might be upset, you probably want to take out something and fling and lick the bicycle man off a bicycle because they might do foolishness on the road. But having self-control means you keep the window up and you don't do anything at the bicycle man, for example. So before I continue, has anyone ever watched the movie Unhinged? If you watched it, just send me a response in the comment, yes or no. If you watched the movie Unhinged, it came out earlier this year, Unhinged. Now, I think this has to be one of the craziest but possible reactions or representations of a lack of self-control and road rage gone bad. So all right, so I see a lot of notes. You guys need to watch this movie because this movie is like, it really gives you a wake-up call, especially if you're somebody who is subject to road rage and getting angry and frustrated and want to cuss off everybody and tell them about whatever and whoever. So watch the movie Unhinged. I'll type it in the chat. Unhinged, and it came out this year. So that movie will give you a big wake-up call as it comes to self-control and road rage. So what exactly is road rage? So road rage is defined as, quote, aggressive driving or reactions that arise from disagreements with other drivers, right? So road rage is defined as aggressive driving or reactions that arise from disagreements with other drivers. But that's not the only way road rage can come out, because it can also come from other things like being stuck in traffic, that's not moving, having a bad day, feeling stressed out, things like that. Now, we see a lot of this, particularly with our taxi men. I have to refer to the taxi men because they give me the most trouble on the streets. They give everybody trouble on the streets. Sometimes I really wonder, right? So in St. Anne, for example, I was driving on St. Anne Road and I was on the road in a line of traffic, right? I think there was a truck moving really slowly at the front. So we had a long line of traffic going along the road. And I just saw some taxi men, about 4 of them on the inside, because you know when you have the road, you have the right side, which would be the other lane, and then the inside, which would potentially be a sidewalk, if they had built a sidewalk, right? So people could be walking there at any given time. And the taxi men are speeding on the inside of the road and shouting, out and bad, out and bad. And I'm like, because they can't wait in the line like the rest of us, you know, everybody has places to go, not because, you know, the people who are in the vehicle, if them late, you know, start out earlier, things like that. So these are just some little things. And then, guys, it's a lot on the street. So you really need to know how to control it. But I don't know if any of you actually know that there are several types of road rage, right? So we know what road rage is. Again, aggressive driving or reactions that arise from disagreements with other drivers or situations just like being stuck in traffic or feeling stressed out. But there are different types of road rage, and I'm going to tell you the different types. And if you think you can relate to any of these types, just tell me in the comments section. So there is passive aggressive road rage, right? So passive aggressive road rage. This type of road rage comes from a person who wants to maintain control of the road covertly. So wanting to avoid direct confrontation, and this type of driver tries to speed up to disallow another car from merging into their lane. They seldom acknowledge the presence of another driver. So I'll give you an example of this. So I don't know if anybody has ever been on the road and they see, for example, a regular street, right? And you have a driver who is driving slow, right? There's space in front of them and people want to overtake. And each time somebody tries to overtake, that driver decides that they're going to speed up. So not only is that problematic because it can cause an accident, but that person is just like being unnecessarily a road hog. Like, you're not going anywhere. We have places to go. Overtaking is not bad, guys. But of course, as I said, it's the reaction to the situation. So the person is driving up, you know, this is, bear in mind, it's a 2-lane road. So these are the 2 lanes. And this is the slow car moving like it's not going anywhere, and somebody's trying to get where they're going because that person has no purpose anywhere in the day. And instead of allowing the car to freely pass around, they're driving up to block the car. You know how problematic that is, right? That's a passive aggressive road rager. Now, the next type is competitive road rage. Now, this type of road rage comes from a person with competitive behavior when behind the wheel. So they will want to be the first through the intersection and will weave in and out of traffic to arrive to their destination first. Now, who does that remind you guys of? The taxi man, yes. Listen, like sometimes I see something coaster to exactly. Listen, when I was going to Immaculate, I used to like I would wait all day just to ensure that I don't have to take the crazy coaster buses. Yeah, because I don't know what is that with the people them in the vehicle. You carry 20 odd people and I try to kill them out. Hello. So the competitive road rage, it is very scary. So this type of rage comes from a person, as I said, with competitive behavior behind the wheel. They want to be the first through the intersection and will weave in and out of traffic to arrive at their destination first. Competitive road rage often results in reckless driving because a meltdown will ensue rather if things do not turn out the way this driver wants. So if that coaster bus man now decides say him want to reach first and then the two coaster them lick up, the two coaster man them are gonna jump out and start fight each other before realizing that okay, you have people in your van that need to go somewhere, you know? So that type of road rage, crazy behavior. Now we have the impatient road rage. Now, a lot of people get impatient while driving, and impatience typically leads to reckless driving because look at it now, you have somewhere to go, and the person in front of you is moving snail speed, and you need to get where you're going and whatever. So you start blowing your horn, you start doing the most, you start cuss, you start stick out your head and say, hey boy, move up your car, whatever, you know, all kind of stuff. So that's an impatient person, an impatient road rager. So impatient drivers believe that what they have to do or where they have to go is more important than everyone else on the road. An impatient driver is somebody who, for example, might merge last second just before a construction zone. So you guys understand when construction zones are, you know, in Jamaica, it's not really done so effectively, but when you set up the cones to show that road work is coming up, and then you're told to go merge into the other lane, right? An impatient person, because they don't wait in that long line of traffic, they wait to the last minute to cut over in front of somebody. That's an example there for impatient. Another impatient road rage is sitting down in the car at a stoplight. The stoplight turns green less than a second ago, and somebody behind you is blowing, telling you to drive up. What is that? You know? So that's another version of an impatient road rage. Then you have the vocal road rage. Drivers can tell about something in the privacy of their car, or they can roll. Hello. All right, it's gone. All right, so so the driver can either say what they want, cause you in their vehicle, or wind down the window and tell you some words out, you know, out of the car. So though these actions can be small, they can lead to a screaming match, which could escalate into physical violence depending on how thin-skinned the person you're cussing with is, right? So I've seen this with taximen as well. I've also seen this with professional workers. One person is cussing, the next one is cussing again. One show me the video, and then they stop the car. So that's, you know, very unproductive there again. And the fifth type is violent road rage. So violent road rage will result in the enraged person getting out of their vehicles, typically at a stop. And while out of their vehicles, the enraged drivers will continue to use vocal threats and may even cause physical harm to other persons in the vehicle or persons, so both the driver and persons in the vehicle. And drivers who experience violent road rage may use their vehicle as weapons as well. So they may start to even reverse and crash into your vehicle repeatedly, over and over. Probably even lick you down if you come out of your car. Like, these people are very dangerous people. As I said, guys, watch the movie Unhinged, because the behavior in that movie of the main character, it's not anything too far-fetched. So watch that movie tonight and you see what I'm talking about when it comes to road rage and lack of self-control. Now, the road rage effect, of course, happens when there's a disagreement and a negative reaction triggers another reaction or resulting in a greater conflict. So the road rage effect is typically probably when you are upset or you are the rager, get angry at the person. That person then gets angry and then it's just two road ragers back at it, and it's very unproductive. You waste people time, you waste your own time. The problem eventually might not even get resolved, and worst case scenario, somebody could get hurt. Right? So we want to avoid the road rage effect at all times. So here are some ways or some tips you can prevent or reduce road rage. So firstly, breathe. Breathe. It's very important that you breathe, because sometimes when you're upset, I don't know how you guys are, but sometimes when people are upset, they just say things. They just say whatever comes to mind, and then afterwards they realize, yo, I shouldn't say that, because so now I'm ready to come chop me with a cutlass or whatever, right? Like, avoid it, guys. Just breathe and assess the situation, especially if it's an accident. And especially if you are not the person in the wrong, because a lot of times we might be wrong, but if you're not the person in the wrong, you might be more aggressive, right? You might be more upset. This idiot, I never go drive in school. I what you people to stop by license. Some things that we say to people a lot of times, if we breathe and just calm down, the problem could be resolved much easier. Now, number two, stay in your car, keep your windows up, and keep quiet. Right? So stay in your car. Do not ever come out of your car, especially when you see an angry road rager coming at you. Your car is your safety. Stay in the car. Keep your windows up or wind them up if you see somebody charging at you, especially with an object or something to try and harm you. All of that, and keep quiet. So do not argue with them. Do not get outraged and all of that. Worst case scenario, call somebody and explain to them on the phone what is happening. Call the police if you need to, just if the person seems to be that aggressive that they're coming to try and harm you in that situation. And lock the doors, right? But I mean, my doors are always locked, but lock the doors. That's it. Thank you very much, Javina. Lock the doors, very important, because people will draw you out of your car, depending on how crazy they are. Thirdly, don't drive around town to relieve stress, because a lot of times when we're stressed, whether it is like, I'm talking about the bad stress now. When you're to relieve stress, some people say, "Oh, man, go for a drive," or whatever, and you don't know. Sometimes you don't even know what's causing the stress, and sometimes somebody might do something to you on the road, and you just flip out, right? So try not to drive around town to relieve stress. Like, find another way. Read a book, take a nap or something. The drive around town thing should really be last resort. So don't drive to Ochi and back on the highway because you want to relieve stress, because anything can happen and you don't want your reaction to be influenced by how you're feeling in that moment. Number four, exercise self-control. So talk to yourself, like think before you speak, especially. And my next tip would be slow to anger, right? So remember, we're all humans. It's all humans driving the car. As far as I know, I don't think we have any auto driving cars as yet. No robots driving cars as yet. We don't have any robotic chauffeurs. We're all humans and we're all capable of making simple mistakes. As I said, I've been driving for 5 years, and some days I come out of the house and I'm driving and I'm doing everything wrong. I'm riding over sidewalks. I'm doing the most, and I'm like, today's probably just a bad driving day. Just remember, you're human. So do not be too hard on some people, especially the older persons tend to get a lot of cussing. Although some of them drive very aggressive as well, but that's for another day. But just remember that we're all human. And number six, unless you're a police officer, you don't have the authority to punish other persons for their bad driving abilities, right? So if you see somebody overtaking a line of traffic, right? And you say, everybody have places to go, why him pull away? If there's a case where he's trying to cut into you, do not be that passive aggressive driver who's going to drive up and put the other persons in that vehicle at risk, especially when there's incoming traffic. Allow him to go through, cuss yourself if you want, be a vocal, whatever, like just don't cause any conflict. Don't try to kill off the other person. Don't try to punish other people for their mistakes. They'll get their punishment, especially if there's a police officer who witnessed all of that. Just try to remember that unless you are the officer and you are the one with the capabilities of writing that ticket, you do not have the authority to punish other people for their poor driving. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Right? So there's a little quiz here that I found online, and I'm going to share it with everyone. I mean, you can do it in the question and answer time because I'm just about wrapping up. But do the quiz, and it's a quiz on how if you have road rage. It's a road rage test, right? It's fun, strictly fun. It's not a diagnosis or anything, but it would be nice to see what you guys get as the responses, especially if you're not a driver yet. Let's see where your mind is as it relates to how you feel about driving. But just remember that we may not always be in control of the situation, because remember, some accidents you can be the most careful, most alert driver, and on a day an accident just happens or something just happens. Do not drive around in fear. Do not drive around, thinking that you'll always be in control. But at the end of the day, there are some things that we can control, like ourselves. We can control how we drive. So we just ensure that we are in the right, and we deal with those situations as they come. But if you continue to concern your mind with all the negative stuff that could happen and the what ifs and the oh my god, I'm afraid and I'm scared of driving and all of that, then it really will be unproductive, and you forever drive around in fear, and you forever worry about, like, will I ever overcome this fear of driving? Because driving for me is my independence. When I need to get somewhere, I'm able to jump in a vehicle and I'm able to drive. If I go to an event, I have access to a vehicle. If I go to an event and I need to leave now, I feel like the place getting kind of tense and I need to go, I'm able to drive myself home. I'm always the designated driver. I love driving. Driving is my freedom. I'm happy when I'm driving, comfortable. I mean, a lot of people around the world, around the place kind of stress you out when you're driving, but think of the positives about it. So think of the fact that you have an advantage. You can get a job that needs somebody with a driver's license. You can have that freedom, that independence. So I commend all of you here who are actually a part of the MT Driving Academy, Mother Theresa Driving Academy, because you guys are putting yourself out to get that independence and that freedom. And at the end of the day, all you have to do, guys, is be confident in your skills and your ability, because I'm positive that the Driving Academy is getting you guys through. They're giving you excellent lessons. They're training you guys. And you just have to convince yourself that, yes, I'm the best driver. And even if you're still making little mistakes, you have to fake it till you make it. Because at the end of the day, like I said, confidence is key, self-control, and once you have those two things, you'll be able to be well on the streets and well on your way. So that's my presentation. So I hand over to the moderator, and I guess she'll feed the questions from there. So thank you guys for sticking around. Or remember to do the quiz and watch the movie Unhinged, and I dropped the quiz link in the chat. So please do it and share your responses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for listening and paying attention. Thank you, Britney. We thank you so much. On behalf of all of us, we just want to say thank you so much for spending your time, and just, wow, you are a blessing. Does anyone have any further comments or anything? Anyone want to say